It wasn't just their dairy farm on the line. It was their home, too. Pauly Paul from Complete Management Consulting is back to tell us how he helped one dairy family on the verge of losing it all turn around from bleeding red to a positive cash flow in just 6 months. Not only were they able to keep the farm and the house, but today it's a financially sound business in the process of transitioning to the next generation. Find out how Pauly and his team lowered this farm's break-even, reorganized labor, and brought them back from a $500,000 loss to breaking even or better in just 6 months' time on this Up-Level Dairy podcast. This is the podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will up-level your skill set and your mindset so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. So sit back and hear it straight from my good friend, dairy consultant, Pauly Paul.
About almost a year ago now, I got a phone call from a dairyman that was struggling financially. Him and his wife were trying to figure out what they were going to do. Their lender met with them and told them he wanted them to liquidate. Part of the liquidation process would have meant they were going to lose their house. And they were willing to potentially give up the dairy, but they definitely wanted to keep their house. And financially, when they ran the numbers and did everything, it looked like they were going to end up losing their house along with it in order to make the bank whole. And one of their sons actually had listened to a podcast that I did with Peggy here, and they decided to give me a call and see what they could do. So they sent over all their financial information to me and sent over all their protocols, everything they were doing day to day, so I could take a look at all that stuff in the forefront. And then I set up a meeting to head to that dairy and spend a little time there understanding what they were doing day to day. We set up a meeting with the lender so we could knock all that out in the same day, try to make it as efficient as possible. Once we met that first day and went through some of the things that I had found, he told us he was going to give us 6 months to turn this thing around, and we needed to show a profit in 6 months. So we worked really hard with them to get these things changed and get things moved around. But in the process of going through all this stuff, we looked at some of the things they were doing, all the treatments they were doing. We could see in the financials they were spending a lot of money on medicines. When I met with the herds people that day, we sat down and kind of went through all the issues they were having, and they said their biggest area of concern was their fresh cows. They were treating a ton of fresh cows. Every cow that came in, they had to give them something. So they were using a lot of Band-Aids. The feeding area, once we got into that and we started tearing that apart, that's where I think the key to everything was to get the fresh cows fixed, is getting feed in front of these cows timely, fixing some of the issues that we saw in the ration. Just getting that corrected, I think, was the main thing that turned everything around for them. That's kind of what led into the labor thing and all the meds they were using and all the extra Band-Aids they had. There were a couple ingredients in there that, after having somebody else look at it, they could see those couple ingredients needed to be changed a little bit. And it was basically all in the pre-fresh diet. So they fixed that, got things corrected there, and then just getting feed in front of those cows for 24 hours a day, that was a big key, because that was one of the pens that they would pick up the feed in the morning and it got fed at the very end. So they would concentrate on feeding all the milking cows first and then go to the dry cows, and they sat for hours without feed. So it was quite a few different things that were attributing to the sick fresh cows. Everything looked really good on the protocol side. It's just that they were having to do almost every protocol to every animal. So they were getting boluses, they were getting aspirins, calcium. Almost every cow was ending up with metritis or an RP. They had many DAs. So it was really important for us to try to fix those problems so that they didn't have to go through every step of every treatment protocol with every cow. So they needed a lot of labor to deal with these cows because they just had so many animals that they were dealing with and so many things they had to do to them. That's where the labor came in. Yeah, we knew we had to tackle that one right away. So when I looked at that, I'm like, wow, this is way overstaffed. I counted how many people they had working these the cows on a dairy, and they had 6 people working, and it was about a 600 cow dairy. So the first thing I said to him, I said, yeah, we need to make things more efficient in this area. So we cut 2 people out of the labor, and that netted about $100,000 to the good side for them. How we were able to do that is they didn't have so many cows to treat. We reorganized their pens a little bit for them so that they could be a little more efficient on the labor side, which helped reduce that labor. When we got there, they would put a cow into a pen and she'd stay there her entire lactation. So they were dealing with every pen on the farm had fresh cows in it. So they were scattered all over the place trying to find a couple cows in every pen. So what we did is we organized it, and it's kind of more traditional. You have one pen with fresh cows in it. We have another pen. It might be first lactation animals, or it might be just higher producing cows. But we concentrated one pen into just fresh cows, and then we had 2 other pens that were doing all the other duties like breeding and vet checks, hoof trimming, and then we had some late lactation pens. When we did those late lactation pens, we were able to cut quite a bit out of the feed costs just by doing that, taking some of the more expensive products out of the feed. So we just streamlined some things right off the bat. I knew the nutrition thing eventually was going to take effect, but that takes a little more time. But we streamlined things by moving some cows around so that they didn't have to work the entire farm. So they could concentrate their time on fresh cows in one single pen rather than the entire farm. So that initially right away reduced 2 people, and then we moved some other people around. We put 1 person into the feeding area to help out there. Okay. So we actually took 3 people out of there. And I think as time goes on here, we can reduce it some more because their fresh cows are doing phenomenal right now. I think with the 600 cow dairy, they should be able to handle it with 1 person. We had gone through the ration, and we could see there were some potential issues there, but just the whole process of how they were getting fed, how the ration was put together, just the timeliness of everything, we identified some key areas there that we could make some changes. And then while making those changes, they could definitely see the end result in the fresh cows. We ended up fixing the fresh cow issue. They had a lot healthier fresh cows. Their medicine usage started declining. They stopped using all the Band-Aids, and that's something I talk about a lot, is the amount of Band-Aids that people use on dairies, whether it be in feed or on the medicine side. What ended up happening as we went through that whole process, we were able to reduce some labor. So it was a really desperate situation at that point when we did get called. So we had to take all the tools out of the toolbox and get things moving really fast. So we then, on the feeding side of things, the person that was doing the feeding was taking all day, so running the equipment for 12 hours a day trying to feed all these cows. What we did is we put another person that was doing the herd work into that position for a couple hours a day to help that feeder guy get done quicker. So we cut the feeding from 12 hours down to 5 to 6 hours it was taking them. That reduced the amount of fuel that they were using because the payloader was running all day, the tractor and the mixer was running all day. So it cut their fuel usage in half. That also, by doing that, increased milk production because the cows actually had more feed for that 24-hour period. What they were doing when we got there was they'd go in and clean all the bunks out, and then they'd come in and feed 1 pen at a time while the cows were out of feed for many hours. So we fixed a whole bunch of different things, and it wasn't all one thing that made the difference on this farm, but yeah, we hit the first one, which was the fresh cow issue. We were able to take a lot of the Band-Aids out of the feed, so we cut a lot of costs there. We started feeding more forage and purchasing less feed, so we saved a lot of money by doing that. The other thing we did when we sat down and looked at some of the financial stuff, we could see their electricity usage was high. We found some areas there where they could turn off some pumps. They had some pumps running 24 hours a day and just overflowing some tanks. So we found every little area we dug into, we found something that we could save $100 here, $1,000 there. And by the time it was all said and done, we were able to take this dairy from losing $500,000 a year to actually breaking even. And then eventually now they're in the black. They did struggle a little bit this year with some of the lower milk prices, but now They're getting paid about $18 a hundred right now, and they're breaking even at that. Where before it was going to take about $20 to $21 a hundred for this dairy to cash flow. And now today that lender is actually still working with them and going from a liquidation standpoint to now being able to work with his lender. They are still in the process of potentially shopping their loans out, but interest rates right now, they do have some loans locked in. So I told them just hold tight and don't jump ship until we can see some better interest rates. The other thing we are potentially going to do in order to keep maybe a person or two on board is cross-train them to do some of their own in-house stuff. Maybe doing some of their own breeding or some of their own hoof trimming or those sort of things. This particular one actually had robots. So they were getting 3 visits per day. So they're doing really well. So actually milk production on that dairy has gone up. I think we're over 5 pounds a cow more than what they used to get. So the income side of things helped out along with reducing all those expenses. So that's how, they got into the black. Yeah, the success story to this dairy was they're able to keep their house. That was the number one goal for this family. They are now wanting to transition the dairy over to their kids. So we're going to help work that process through and see what we can get done, get the next generation trained up, because they had no clue this dairy was in financial trouble. So yeah, the kids are in their 30s, probably that age, and not a single one of them knew that their farm was actually in financial trouble. I do see that a lot. I see that on a lot of dairies where one person on the dairy may know what's really going on financially, or 2 people, and the rest of the dairy doesn't know. And that's something I try to encourage everybody, and I encourage this family to do that. Sit down with the members of the dairy, because they're going to want to keep doing everything the way they've always done it. In order to get change, we had to sit down with them and show them, here, you guys, we're losing $500,000 a year. And the only way we're going to be able to change that is if we all make some changes and make some sacrifices. So what we did is we made them a part of the financial discussion, and we went through the budget with them and showed them, here's how much we're paying out in labor right now. We need to reduce that. Here's how much we're paying out on feed. Here's how much we're paying out on the medicine side of things. Here's how much electricity we're spending. And then we were able to get some input from them on things they could change. They found some things where they could be a little more efficient at. And the first thing they told me, they said, well, I wish we wouldn't have to use this many meds or this many treatments on the cows. And once we assured them, we were able to fix it through the feed a little bit and then fix the timeliness of how the feed was being delivered. They bought into it a little more. And then they saw how efficient we could make the dairy, and they realized, yeah, we don't need this many people. But I think it was really key to get them involved with the financial side so they understood what was going on and let them help make some of the changes. They had it in their mind when I got there that, well, what are you doing here? What do we need you for? And they had it in their mind that they were going to just eventually take the dairy over. They were going to make their living off of that dairy, and life was just going to go on. But they had, like I said, they had no clue that financially they were that strapped. I think as the future progresses here for this family, it looks like the amount of family members they have in place, they are going to want to expand. And I think now that they understand the financial part of things a little better, I think they're able to see that, yeah, if we can add more cows, because they do have more room on that particular dairy, I think we can add more cows, start making a little more money. They may be in a position at some point down the road that they could either expand the dairy they have or look at purchasing another dairy somewhere. And that's been some of the talks that we've had already. 5 years ago, they would have, there's no way they would have been able to think what they're thinking now today. One of the big takeaways from this scenario that we just talked about here was that there's always a way to get from $20 break even down to 18 or 16. You just got to be willing to sometimes think outside the box, listen to some other people, some other advisors, and trust the people you have around you to help walk you through some of these processes. I think it's really key. This particular dairy did not have a budget, so they were just kind of running by the seat of their pants. And I think it's important for, once we sat down with the family members and actually went through and put a budget together, they actually understood what their areas were contributing to the financial stress of this dairy. So I think it's key for everybody to just really look at those numbers and understand where you're at financially, and see what you can do different to maybe cash flow at $16. This particular dairy is getting paid well on their components, so they're actually doing a little bit better than some of the other dairies that I see that get milk prices $16. They get $16. So they're pretty fortunate that way. So this particular dairy, when we spent a little time there, within the first day I sat down looking at the financials, I was able to, between creating some more income and cutting expenses, we're able to cut $500,000. So they were projected to lose $500,000. We were able to have them break even at that point. It took me one day, 3/4 of a day, basically, just to spend on that dairy, understanding what they were doing throughout the entire day, running some numbers on the computer, looking at the financials. And at the end of the day, I was able to show them we're going to be able to cut that many expenses or increase some income. So once we put the plan together and put it on paper, we started with a few things right away, but overall, it took them about 6 months to really realize that everything is flowing now and they are going to be profitable daily. And we were able to show them, yes, you are going to break even right now. And as time goes on here, they're going to be probably $100,000 to $200,000 in the black. Over a 6-month period, we've really been able to flip that dairy pretty quick.
You just heard from Pauly Paul with Complete Management Consulting. Find all the links to get in touch with Pauly in our show notes. Thank you for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen. And if you like this episode, be sure to take a moment to rate and review it. We'd love a 5-star rating so that we can keep this show going and keep serving the dairy community at the highest level. Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast.